Assalamu alaikum. I couldn't be more excited to be here to celebrate Amal Academy's 2020 cohort of fellows. Thank you, Ali Sadiq and Benji Williams, parents, friends, supporters, partners of Amal, the incredible Amal team, for gathering to celebrate this amazing group of individuals. And mostly to you, the class of 2020, I take my hat off. You've gone through a difficult year. We all have. You made hard choices to stay the course. And it matters. And indeed, after I've heard so many things that you've done this year, it's reinforced for me why Amal is so important, why you are so important. Because you already are practicing some of the tenets of moral leadership. And if ever there were a time in history that needed your moral leadership more than now, I can't think of it. Moral leadership. What do we really mean by that? Well, I grew up in a time when the very way we define success too often flew in the face of it. Money, power, fame. We put the individual at the center of everything. Profit. What we need today in an interdependent world is different. We know that our current institutions have run their course. We're more unequal, divided, and divisive than ever in my lifetime. We know we have to reimagine the institutions. Yet, we don't have a roadmap. Moral leadership, therefore, starts by redefining success. Building a framework that puts our shared humanity and the sustainability of the earth at the center of our systems, not just profit. Now, building that world that we all need to be a part of isn't going to be easy. That also is why moral leadership is so important. And as I've said, you're already on the path. Because you're already practicing the first tenet of moral leadership, and that is to just start. To let curiosity guide you and have the courage to take a step towards solving a big problem, taking on a big task, and then letting the work teach you where you next need to go. It's something I've been doing all my life. It's something Benji certainly did when he started Amal. In my life, I was working as a more traditional banker when I decided that while I loved the tools of banking, I didn't love the fact that the poor were excluded from the banks. And so, while it was incredibly hard telling my parents and friends of the decision that I had made, I knew it would be harder, ultimately, to defer my dreams. And so I made the very difficult decision. I started. In my case, I took a step and fell flat on my face. I failed repeatedly. But it was in trying and failing and trying again that I learned. And in so many ways, when I think about how change really happens, as I made steps, I could build the next building block of what then would become Acumen, the organization I run now. And we were early in our tenure, investing in companies that were solving big problems of housing, healthcare, education, energy, agriculture, when 9/11 hit. I live in New York City. That's where Acumen's global team is based. It would have been easy at that point to pull inward. Everyone I knew was doing that. But to me, this was a moment to reach outward. Go to those places where people in my country had fear. Understand what could be built. And it was really interesting. When we made a decision that we would work in Pakistan, I had a moment of real doubt. And I asked a wise older man, was I crazy to think that we could go to a place I'd never been, I knew very little about, and actually bring the patient capital Acumen model? And he said to me, Jacqueline, when everyone's running away, that's often a moment to run towards something. And if you dare to go and then stay, you may know more than most anybody outside. But you have to stay. And it was such great advice. Luck also plays a big hand in this. So I just started. I took a flight to Karachi. It was a crazy time. The American consul had just been bombed. There was a lot of fear again. But when the universe intervened, after I had made this commitment, like it often seems to do, I met a man named Syed Babarelli. Little did I know that he was, and is, one of the most important moral business leaders in Pakistan, that he had a real interest in social enterprise. So when I told him what my dreams were, he also gave me incredible wisdom. He said, we've seen people like you come and go for many, many years. So here's my advice. If you want to just start in Pakistan, come, do the work, be honest about where you succeed and also where you fail. And please don't talk about it until you've actually done something. That level of honesty in him gave me real courage to just start again. And then you play that forward. Because over time we learned that investing wasn't enough. We also had to invest in companies wasn't enough. We had to invest in people. And then I met Benji Williams, who became an Acumen Fellow, and he came to Pakistan because we had dared to just start and come. And while he was at a water company, he learned that this was a time that there was so much that could be done, but he wanted to focus on how to actually find great talent and support that talent so that it could build companies like this water company. So he went to business school, and at the end of it, he knew he wanted to work in this idea of unlocking energies of young people, connecting them to great jobs and careers so they could contribute back to their country. He didn't know how to do it either. But because Acumen had just started, Benji then could have a nudge and a support system to just start. And Amal was born. And when I think about the fact that I feel part of it, Syed Babarelli is part of it, you start to see a web based on a set of shared values across lines of difference to build something beautiful in the world. And again, here's where you come in. Now, the Jesuits have a really powerful saying. They say, go to where your heart's deepest yearning meets the world's greatest need. You may not have any idea where you ultimately will find your deepest sense of meaning or purpose. So let curiosity be your guide. When you see something big or small that needs you, take a step toward it. Just start. Let that step teach you where you next need to go. The second biggest or important practice for moral leadership is what we would call the moral imagination, the humility of seeing the world as it is and the audacity to imagine what it could be. Amal represents that in the most beautiful way. That when Amal Academy was started, Benji was clear he wanted to change education. And he would just start with humility, because there weren't a lot of programs to actually identify extraordinary young people and give them the tools, the skills, and importantly, the attributes of character so that they could succeed wherever they were, so that they could feel accompanied not only by the institution, but by each other. And here, when I look at almost 6,000 fellows around the world, it's that it comes from seeing what it will take to change an entire system, but recognizing the reality of what it will actually take to build it. And so you need to hold competency and hone your character, moral imagination. That also comes with deep listening. So many of us think we know all the answers. In this moment of history, when we're reinventing and reimagining, it becomes important to us not to go and help people, but to understand what's at the heart of problems, to ask those who are most affected by them, to immerse with them, get close, listen to what they say from a place of inquiry, not certainty. That means you have to be willing to change yourself, not simply try to convince or convert the other person. There's a Sufi saying that I have absolutely loved by Rumi, where he says, "Out beyond right doing and wrong doing is a field. I'll meet you there." So many of our biggest challenges today require that we learn to cross lines of difference. This is part of the imagination, moral imagination, too. And it takes a skill set of listening, not just with our ears, but with all parts of ourselves, and practicing having those hard conversations where you start from a frame of being willing to change yourself. Next, I would say, is to practice courage. The world does not need us to sit in our corners fearing each other. The world needs us to lean toward each other, build understanding, offer places where we personally can make change, or at least try. And it doesn't matter if you're working in a corporation or an NGO or a government ministry. What matters is that you be part of the change. If you see a place where you can help, hold up your hand, make an offer. Amal's already given you great tools and practice. I loved hearing from some of the 2020 fellows when you wrote about a task that you'd been given to raise money for Edie Foundation. Now, none of you had raised a lot of money before, and suddenly 40 of you had to find a way to work together, come together, raise money, ask people. All of that is hard. And yet, you did it. You raised 150,000 rupees for people who had been really hurt by the floods. Just think about that. Now you can build on it. Because that's the thing about courage. It's like a muscle. All of us are born with some kind of courage. But none of us have courage in all parts of ourselves. When I was young, the idea of speaking publicly was so terrifying that in my first speech in 7th grade, I literally fainted. I would shake like a leaf, not just in my teenage years or even my 20s. I think it was probably about the time I turned 40 where I started to get comfortable. And it didn't happen magically. It happened because I would practice and practice and practice and practice until suddenly it became part of me. And I had to learn new tools because people would say to me, "Oh, well, public speaking, what you have to do is just imagine that nobody's there." And that didn't work. It was only when I would say, "I want to be an instrument of peace, of love," that I would literally think about, I'm not important. What is important is that I want to give a gift to other people. And again, when I got out of my own way, moral leadership, and didn't think about, was this making me more famous? Was this making me look good? Instead was, am I offering a gift that will enable other people to act, other people to understand, other people to feel seen and have more dignity? then I lost my fear. Fear holds too many of us back. And in this moment of too much fear, there's the chance for each of you to shine in big ways and in small ways. What matters is that you practice your shine, that you keep stepping forward, that you keep in mind not only that you are part of something bigger than yourselves, but that life has its greatest meaning and freedom when you dare to commit to something a lot bigger than yourself. So make that commitment to the values of them all, to one another, to the dreams that you have, and just start. Practice moral imagination. Learn how to listen, not just with your ears, but with all parts of yourself. Don't be afraid of crossing lines of difference. Instead, recognize that it's only when we cross those lines, when we engage with those who don't agree with us, that we really have a chance to learn and stretch and grow. It's not comfortable, but I have learned to let discomfort be a proxy for progress. And most of all, keep practicing that courage so that when the world most needs you, you'll be ready for it. I wish each of you all of that and more. Inside each of you is infinite wisdom, infinite possibility. And I dream of that wisdom and possibility being unlocked, brought out in the world so that you, in turn, can unlock and bring it out in others. Because if I have learned one thing in my life, it is that we do not get dignity as a human race until every one of us has dignity. So Godspeed, good luck, and do one thing. Give back more to the world than you take from it. Bless.